Ladies and gentlemen, there was a time when I thought heartbreak was the end. I believed that when someone breaks you, they take a part of you that can never be restored. But then something happened. I stopped looking at the person who hurt me and started looking at myself. That's when I discovered the secret. The best way to confuse someone who hurt you is not to react the way they expect. They expect tears, give them a smile. They expect you to beg, walk away with grace. They expect you to shatter, build a life so beautiful that they become invisible in it. This speech is not about them, it is about you. If you have ever been hurt, this is your moment to reclaim your power. Stay till the end, because today we are going to learn how to confuse pain itself. Silence is one of the most powerful tools in life. It holds within it the ability to shake the ground beneath someone's feet without making a single sound. When someone hurts you, the first instinct is to react, to lash out, to demand explanations. You want them to know how much they've broken you, how deeply they've wounded your heart. You want to scream, cry, and question why they did what they did. But what if I told you that the most unsettling response is not a reaction at all? What if, instead of seeking answers, you chose silence, not the silence of pain, but the silence of strength? When someone hurts you, they expect chaos. They expect an outburst, endless messages, confrontations, or public displays of heartbreak. They expect to see the pain written all over your face. But when they look at you and see nothing but calm, that is when they start to wonder. That is when their own mind becomes their worst enemy. They will replay every word they said, every action they took, trying to figure out why you are not reacting the way they expected. Your silence forces them into a battle within themselves, a battle they never prepared for. People are creatures of habit. They thrive on predictability. When someone hurts you, they are prepared for what comes next. They know the script: apologies, anger, bargaining, sadness, or even desperate attempts to make things right. But when you break that pattern, when you don't play into their expectations, they lose control over the situation. And when they lose control, they begin to feel uncomfortable, uncertain, and most importantly, confused. Think of a moment when someone hurt you deeply. Maybe they betrayed your trust, walked away when you needed them most, or made you feel like you were not enough. In that moment, your emotions felt overwhelming. You wanted to react, to get a response from them that justified your pain. But imagine if, instead, you chose to do something different. Imagine if you stepped back, took a deep breath, and refused to give them the reaction they expected. When you stay silent, it does not mean you are weak. It does not mean you are suppressing your emotions. It means you are choosing a different path, a path of wisdom and self-respect. It means you are refusing to give them the satisfaction of knowing they got under your skin. Silence is not about ignoring the pain. It is about acknowledging that you do not owe anyone an explanation for your healing process. Your silence is not empty. It is filled with resilience. It is filled with quiet strength that speaks louder than any words ever could. It is in that silence that they begin to feel the weight of their actions. They start questioning themselves, wondering if they made a mistake, if they miscalculated your response. They thought they had control over your emotions, but when they see you standing strong, unshaken, they start to lose their own balance. Silence also gives you something invaluable: time. When you do not rush to react, you give yourself the space to process your emotions without external influence. You are not reacting out of anger or sadness. Instead, you are giving yourself the time to heal, to reflect, to grow. It allows you to regain your sense of self before making any decisions about how to move forward. There is a certain dignity in silence. It commands respect. It shows that you are in control of yourself, that you refuse to be manipulated or drawn into unnecessary drama. While others may expect you to fall apart, your silence tells them that you are stronger than they thought. It tells them that their actions did not define you. And here's the secret: when you do not react, you take away their power. They no longer hold control over your emotions. They cannot feed off your pain. They cannot use your anger against you. And they cannot keep you trapped in an endless cycle of heartbreak. You break free simply by refusing to engage in the game they want to play. Silence also forces them to face themselves. When someone hurts you, they often justify it in their minds by blaming you in some way. They convince themselves that you deserved it, that you would react in a certain way, that it was inevitable. But when you do not respond, they lose that justification. They are left alone with their actions, forced to reflect on what they did without any distractions. It is easy to believe that speaking up, fighting back, or seeking closure will bring peace. But sometimes the greatest peace comes from letting go without a word. It comes from realizing that you do not need validation from the person who hurt you. It comes from understanding that your silence is not a sign of defeat, but a declaration of strength. So when someone hurts you, resist the urge to react immediately. Pause, breathe. Let silence do the talking. Because in that silence, they will hear everything they never expected. People are creatures of habit, drawn to predictability and patterns. They expect certain behaviors, certain reactions, and certain emotional responses. When someone hurts you, they assume they know how you will react. They have seen it before: tears, anger, pleading, retaliation, maybe even a desperate attempt to get them to see the pain they have caused. It is a cycle they have witnessed, perhaps even orchestrated. But what happens when you break the pattern? What happens when you refuse to give them the satisfaction of knowing they affected you in the way they intended? That is where true power lies. When someone causes you pain, they believe they have a sense of control over your emotions. They think they hold the strings, dictating how you will respond. They assume they can predict your next move, and in doing so, they gain confidence. But when you do the opposite of what they expect, you disrupt their entire perception. You take away their control, leaving them confused, questioning, and uncertain. Instead of showing distress, you smile. Instead of reacting with rage, you remain calm. Instead of seeking explanations, you walk away without a word. That shift, that unpredictability, is the one thing they never saw coming. People expect to see their impact on you. They expect evidence of the damage they have caused. When they hurt you, they are prepared for the aftermath. They are waiting for the emotional storm, the messages, the confrontation, or the heartbreak that they have triggered. It reassures them that they still hold a place in your mind and heart. But when they see you unaffected, when they notice that you are not responding the way they expected, it forces them to question everything. They start wondering if they ever had the power they assumed they did. Unpredictability is not about pretending. It is about truly shifting your mindset. It is about choosing growth over reaction, peace over chaos, and self-respect over validation. When someone walks away, they expect you to chase. But when you don't, they are left wondering why. They begin to question their own worth in your life. They thought they mattered enough to shake you. But when you continue moving forward without them, they start doubting themselves instead. That doubt, that uncertainty, is what leaves them unsettled. When you do the unexpected, you take control of your own narrative. You decide how your story unfolds. Instead of playing into their expectations, you rewrite the rules. You show them that you are not someone who can be broken easily, that your emotions are not theirs to manipulate, that your happiness is not dependent on their presence. That realization unsettles them, not because they suddenly regret their actions, but because they can no longer predict or influence your journey. Imagine a moment when someone hurt you deeply. They might have expected you to fall apart, to lose yourself in pain, to seek closure from them. But imagine if instead you chose a different response. Instead of asking why, you simply move forward. Instead of showing sorrow, you embrace joy. Instead of seeking revenge, you focused on building yourself up. That shift changes everything. It places them in a position of uncertainty where they can no longer read you, no longer understand how much of an impact they had, no longer see the control they thought they possessed. This unpredictability does not mean suppressing emotions. It does not mean pretending to be fine when you are not. It means making a conscious decision to respond in a way that serves your growth rather than their expectations. It means understanding that your reaction should not be a performance for them, but a step towards your own healing. It is about choosing what brings you peace rather than what brings them satisfaction. People who hurt others often thrive on a sense of power. They believe they can predict emotional outcomes, that they can gauge the depth of the wound they have inflicted. When they no longer have that insight, they lose that power. They are left guessing, trying to decode what they can no longer read. They begin to wonder if they ever truly understood you. They start questioning if they were ever as significant in your life as they believed themselves to be. That confusion is a powerful shift because it places you in control of the situation rather than them. Unpredictability is not about games or manipulation. It is about stepping outside of the roles that others have assigned to you. It is about proving to yourself more than anyone else that your emotions, your reactions, and your healing belong to you alone. It is about taking away their ability to define your pain or dictate your healing process. It is about showing that you are not bound by their expectations, that you are more than what they assumed, and that their actions do not get to determine your path. When you break the cycle, when you choose a different response, you change the entire dynamic. You force them to confront something they never considered, the possibility that their presence, their actions, their decisions do not hold as much weight in your life as they believed. And that realization, that sudden shift in power, is something they never anticipated. There is a certain strength in silence, a power in the absence of reaction. When someone wrongs you, they expect a response. They're waiting for the confrontation, the anger, the tears, or even the desperate need for closure. It reassures them that their actions had an impact, that they still occupy space in your thoughts. But what happens when you take that away from them? When you meet their betrayal, their disrespect, or their cruelty with nothing but indifference? That is when they begin to question everything. That is when they are left confused, uncertain, and uneasy. Silence speaks louder than any words ever could. It sends a message that cannot be misinterpreted, that cannot be argued with, that cannot be explained away. When you do not react, when you do not give them the satisfaction of seeing how much they hurt you, you shift the power dynamic completely. They expect outrage, they expect pleading, they expect emotion. But when you give them nothing, they are left wondering. They start questioning whether they mattered as much as they thought they did. They start replaying every moment, trying to decipher what is going on in your mind. That uncertainty is unsettling because it places them in a position of powerlessness. People who hurt others often thrive on control. They believe they can predict your emotions, that they can dictate how you feel and what you do next. They assume that their actions will lead to a specific reaction, and in that assumption, they find confidence. But when you deny them that predictable response, you break their sense of control. They can no longer read you, no longer anticipate your next move, no longer feel certain of where they stand in your life. And that is what leaves them shaken. Silence is not weakness. It is not avoidance. It is a deliberate choice, a strategic decision to prioritize your peace over their expectations. It is a refusal to engage in their game, to allow them the satisfaction of knowing they have affected you. It is an act of self-respect, of choosing yourself over the need to explain, justify, or seek validation. When you remain silent, you protect your energy. You reclaim the power they tried to take from you. You shift the focus from them to yourself, from reaction to self-reflection, from pain to growth. There is nothing more unsettling to someone who expects a reaction than being met with stillness. It forces them to confront their own actions without the distraction of your emotions. It makes them sit with the reality of what they have done, without the comfort of knowing how it affected you. It forces them to look inward, to deal with their own discomfort, to question their own motives. And in that questioning, they begin to lose confidence. They start doubting themselves, wondering if they ever truly understood you, if they ever truly had the influence they believed they did. Silence also creates a sense of mystery, an air of unpredictability that leaves them unsettled. When you do not react, they have no way of knowing what you are thinking, how you are feeling, or what you might do next. And that unknown is far more powerful than any words you could say. It keeps them on edge, keeps them wondering, keeps them invested in a situation where you have already moved forward. That psychological shift, where they are the ones seeking answers instead of you, is what truly leaves them confused. When someone hurts you, they expect an emotional display. They expect evidence of the damage they have caused. But when they see you carrying on as if they never existed, as if their words and actions had no effect on you, it forces them to reconsider everything. They thought they had left a mark. But when you continue living your life, focusing on yourself, growing, thriving, and finding happiness in places that have nothing to do with them, it unsettles them in a way they never anticipated. Choosing silence does not mean suppressing your emotions. It does not mean pretending you are not hurt or denying yourself the space to heal. It means understanding that not everyone deserves access to your feelings, that not every situation warrants a response. It means recognizing that your energy is precious and that giving it to someone who does not appreciate it is a waste. It means knowing that your peace is worth more than their understanding. There is a certain grace in walking away without a word. It shows that you do not need to justify yourself, that you do not owe them an explanation, that your value does not decrease because they failed to see it. It is a silent declaration of strength, a quiet yet powerful statement that says, I choose myself. And that choice is what truly leaves them bewildered. People remember the things that disrupt their expectations. They remember the things they cannot explain, the moments that break the patterns they are used to. When you react in ways they do not anticipate, you become unforgettable. Not because of the pain they caused you, but because of the way you refuse to let it define you. They remember the silence, the calm, the unwavering sense of self that they could not shake. And that, more than anything, is what leaves a lasting impression. There is something incredibly powerful about rising above the pain inflicted upon you, not through anger or retaliation, but through sheer transformation. When someone hurts you, they expect you to be stuck in that pain. They anticipate your suffering, your struggle, your attempts to make sense of what happened. But nothing confuses them more than when you take that pain and use it to elevate yourself beyond their reach. It unsettles them because it contradicts their expectations. It forces them to confront a reality they never considered, that you were never dependent on them, that their actions did not break you, that you are capable of flourishing without them. Healing is not just about moving forward. It is about evolving in a way that makes their presence in your life seem irrelevant. When you focus on yourself, on your growth, on your happiness, you create a reality that no longer includes them. And that is something they cannot comprehend. They assume that their absence would leave a void, that their actions would leave scars, that you would struggle to find your footing again. But when they see you thriving, embracing life, glowing with confidence and self-assurance, they are left confused. They start to wonder if they ever truly mattered as much as they believed. When you take the energy they tried to drain from you and redirect it towards yourself, you send a message far stronger than any words could convey. You tell them, without saying a single thing, that they did not define you, that their betrayal did not shatter you, that their absence did not diminish your worth. Instead of falling apart, you become more. You become someone who refuses to let pain dictate their story. You become someone who chooses self-love over self-pity, growth over stagnation, peace over bitterness. And that choice is what truly confuses them. People who hurt others often expect a certain reaction. They expect to see you struggle, to see you lost, to see you consumed by emotions. They assume their actions hold enough power to shape your reality. But the moment you take control of your own narrative, the moment you step into a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and more radiant than before, they lose that power. They are forced to recognize that they were never as significant as they thought they were. And that realization unsettles them in ways they never expected. One of the most effective ways to confuse someone who has hurt you is to let go of any need for validation from them. When you do not seek closure, when you do not look for explanations, when you do not beg for understanding, you take away their control. They expect you to want answers, to need some sort of resolution, to linger in the confusion of what happened. But when you move forward without demanding anything from them, you leave them questioning themselves. They start wondering why you are not reacting the way they expected. They start doubting whether they had the impact they believed they did. That uncertainty lingers in their mind, creating an unease that they cannot shake. Transformation is a form of silent revenge. Not the kind that seeks to harm, but the kind that turns pain into power. When someone hurts you, they expect you to carry that wound, to let it define you, to let it weigh you down. But when you use that pain as fuel for your own evolution, you turn it into something they never saw coming. You become unrecognizable not because you have changed for them, but because you have grown for yourself. You become someone who radiates self-worth, who refuses to be diminished by another person's actions. And that is what truly confuses them. Imagine the moment they see you again after thinking they left you broken. They expect sadness, bitterness, resentment. But instead, they see confidence, they see joy. They see a version of you that is thriving, that has moved beyond the pain they inflicted. That moment shakes them to their core because it contradicts everything they assumed. They thought they had left an imprint on your life, but instead they are faced with the undeniable truth you have outgrown them. People do not expect you to heal without them. They do not expect you to find peace without their apology. They do not expect you to be happy without their presence. But when you show them that you are, it forces them to question their own significance. It makes them realize that their role in your life was never as central as they imagined. And that realization is far more impactful than any confrontation ever could be. Growth is the most unexpected response to pain. It is not what they predict, and it is not what they prepare for. When you take the hurt they cause and turn it into wisdom, into strength, into something that propels you forward instead of holding you back, you create a reality where they no longer have influence. They become a footnote in your story rather than the defining chapter. And nothing confuses them more than realizing they no longer have a place in your life. Your happiness is your greatest act of defiance. When you continue to smile, to dream, to love, to build a future that has nothing to do with them, you take away any satisfaction they might have found in your pain. They expect regret, but you give them resilience. They expect sorrow, but you give them joy. They expect dependency, but you show them freedom. And in doing so, you leave them questioning everything they thought they knew about you. Pain has a way of shaping us, molding us into versions of ourselves we never thought we would become. But the most powerful transformation happens when we choose to rise above it, not by seeking revenge, not by dwelling in the past, but by stepping into a life so full of purpose and strength that the person who caused the pain no longer has a place in it. When someone hurts you, they often expect to leave an imprint on your soul, a scar that never fully fades. They assume you will carry the weight of their actions. that their betrayal or cruelty will keep you anchored to a past filled with questions and unresolved emotions. But the moment you decide to move forward without looking back, you step into a power they never anticipated. There is something profoundly unsettling about a person who refuses to be defined by their pain. The moment you let go of bitterness, the moment you embrace joy without waiting for an apology, you take control of the narrative. You create a story where they are no longer the main character, where their actions no longer hold significance. This is what confuses them the most. They expected your pain to consume you, to linger in your every thought, to keep you entangled in memories of what was. But when they see you smiling, living, growing, their confidence in their own importance begins to waver. They start to wonder if they ever truly mattered as much as they thought they did. When you no longer react in the way they anticipated, when you do not chase after closure or seek explanations, they are left with a void they never expected. People who hurt others often thrive on the knowledge that their actions have an impact. They assume they have the power to dictate your emotions, to leave a lasting effect on your heart. But when you rise not as a victim but as someone who has outgrown the pain, you take that power away from them. They are left questioning their own significance, wondering why their absence did not break you. There is an undeniable strength in choosing silence over confrontation, in choosing peace over turmoil, in choosing self-growth over dwelling on the past. Imagine the moment they come across you again, expecting to see the remnants of the pain they inflicted. They assume there will be resentment in your eyes, sorrow in your smile, hesitation in your voice. But instead, they see a version of you that is unrecognizable, stronger, wiser, unbothered. That moment is where their confusion begins. They thought they left you shattered, but instead they find you whole. They believe they took something from you, but instead you have gained more than they ever expected. The most powerful way to confuse someone who has hurt you is to remove their ability to affect you. Do not give them the satisfaction of knowing their actions still linger in your mind. Do not allow their words to echo in your thoughts. Instead, turn inward and reclaim yourself, not for them, but for you. Redirect the energy they drain from you and pour it into your passions, your dreams, your happiness. Make them realize that they were not the defining force in your life, that their presence or absence has no bearing on your ability to thrive. People often underestimate the power of moving forward without bitterness. They assume that to heal, you must first confront the person who caused the pain, demand explanations, seek closure. But true healing comes when you no longer feel the need to do any of that. When you stop looking for answers and start creating your own peace, you step into a version of yourself that is untouchable. And that is what confuses them. They expected you to be stuck, to need validation, to struggle without their presence. Instead, they see someone who is radiant, someone who has found joy beyond what they imagined possible. They expect regret, but you give them resilience. They expect sadness, but you give them strength. They expect you to hold on, but you show them you have let go. And in that letting go, you create a world where they no longer exist in the way they once did. Their name no longer holds weight in your heart. Their actions no longer dictate your emotions. You take back the control they once thought they had, and that realization unsettles them. Growth is the greatest response to pain. It is not fueled by vengeance or bitterness, but by the quiet, unwavering decision to live fully and freely. When someone sees you flourishing without them, they are forced to confront a truth they never considered, that they were not as important as they believed. That their actions, while painful, did not define you. That you have built a life where their presence is no longer required. And that, more than anything, is what leaves them speechless. Your happiness, your success, your ability to love again, these are the things they never expected. They assumed their absence would leave a void, but instead it created space for something greater. When you continue forward without looking back, when you refuse to let their actions hold you prisoner, you become a mystery they cannot solve. You leave them questioning everything they thought they knew, not just about you, but about themselves. Life has a way of teaching us lessons in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes those lessons come wrapped in pain, delivered by the very people we trusted, loved, and believed in. When someone hurts you, the instinct is to react, to defend yourself, to demand explanations, to seek justice for the pain inflicted. But what if I told you that the most powerful thing you can do is something entirely different? What if I told you that the real way to confuse the person who hurt you is not by confrontation, not by revenge, but by becoming someone they never expected you to be? Pain has a strange way of making us believe that we are powerless. It whispers to us that we are victims, that we need validation, that we need closure before we can move on. But that is not the truth. The truth is, the moment you decide to rise above the pain, to reclaim your joy, to walk away without bitterness, you step into a power they never saw coming. They expect anger, they expect sorrow, they expect you to crumble under the weight of what they did. But when you don't, that is when confusion begins. When someone intentionally hurts you, they are often looking for a reaction. Whether it is betrayal, rejection, or cruelty, there is always an expectation that their actions will leave a mark on you. They assume you will carry the pain with you, that you will hold on to it, that it will shape how you see yourself and the world around you. But when you refuse to let their actions define you, when you refuse to be controlled by their choices, they are left wondering if they ever truly had the power they thought they did. That is the moment they begin to question everything. Imagine for a moment that someone who hurt you sees you again. They expect to see sadness in your eyes, hesitation in your voice, a shadow of your former self. But instead they see strength. They see someone who is not just surviving but thriving. Someone who did not let their betrayal break them, but instead used it as fuel to become something greater. That moment shakes them to their core because they expected a different outcome. They thought they would leave you questioning your worth, but instead, they are the ones left questioning theirs. People who cause pain often do so because they believe they have power over others. They assume that their actions can dictate someone else's happiness, that they have the ability to control emotions and shape futures. But when you remove their power by simply refusing to be affected, they are left standing in their own emptiness. They are forced to face the truth that they are not as significant as they believed. The most effective way to confuse someone who has hurt you is to show them that they do not control your narrative. Live a life so full, so vibrant, so unapologetically joyful that they realize their presence or absence has no impact on your happiness. When they see you laughing, succeeding, loving, growing without them, it disrupts everything they assumed. They thought you would always be there, carrying the weight of their choices, seeking closure, waiting for an apology. But when you do the opposite, when you move on without hesitation, they are the ones left in disbelief. It is not about pretending to be happy, nor is it about faking strength. True strength comes from within, from knowing that you are whole regardless of what has been done to you. It comes from realizing that your worth is not tied to someone else's treatment of you, that their rejection does not define your value, that their betrayal does not determine your future. The moment you internalize this truth, you free yourself in a way they never expected. There is something incredibly unsettling about a person who refuses to be bitter. They expect you to be resentful, to seek revenge, to dwell on what happened. But when you do not, when you choose forgiveness not for them, but for yourself, it throws them into a state of confusion they cannot escape. They start to wonder why their actions did not have the effect they intended. They question if they ever truly mattered in the way they assumed. That realization, more than anything else, is what leaves them unsettled. One of the greatest misconceptions about pain is that healing requires acknowledgement from the person who caused it. We think we need an apology, an explanation, a moment of reckoning to truly move forward. But the truth is, you do not need any of that. You do not need their words, their remorse, their validation. Your healing is entirely in your hands. And when they see you healing without them, when they realize that their absence has done nothing to diminish your light, they are left in a state of disbelief. They expect you to hold on to the past, to relive the pain, to carry the burden of what they did. But when you walk away from the weight of it all, when you step into a future untouched by their actions, you rob them of the power they thought they had. You make them realize that their role in your life was not as significant as they believed. And that, more than anything, is what confuses them the most. They thought they could break you, but instead you became unshakable. They thought they could control your emotions, but instead you became untouchable. They thought their actions would haunt you, but instead you chose to live a life that renders them irrelevant. And in that, you win not by defeating them, but by refusing to let them define you.